This is your News Source Evening Bulletin for today, Thursday, the 25th of October in the year 2018. Here's what we're tracking tonight. Recently appointed Police Commissioner Leslie James has set a timeline for the reform of the Guyana Police Force. At his first press conference since taking office, Mr. James today told reporters that the force is moving ahead with its reform plan, and citizens will notice that reform before the end of the first quarter in the new year.
The Guyana Police Force is at a very important juncture, as you would have recognized, where we are in a deliberate way rolling out a plan which flowed from recommendations. And by March of 2019, you will see, or it is expected, that we'll have a much reformed Guyana Police Force.
The top cop also indicated that reforms are focused in three broad areas at this time, which are human resources management, training, and infrastructure. He said the force is already moving ahead with the remodeling of a number of police stations. Already the police station at Mackenzie has been remodeled, and 16 others are on the schedule for remodeling to start.
16 other such stations are likely to be commissioned shortly. I must report too that those stations are outfitted with modern type units, dealing with the one-way mirror, dealing with units to deal with forensic type interviews, domestic violence, among some others. That is expected to have a better interaction with the members of those communities, of course by the policemen and women who will be stationed there. They'll be in a much comfortable environment, and it will bolster our efforts to give better service to the citizenry.
Under the reform plan, the police force will also see its marine department being boosted, while an aviation department is to be rolled out soon. The commissioner explained that it will be important for the aviation department to become a reality in the efforts to deal with situations in far-flung parts of the country. The police commissioner said the police force intends to ensure better training is made available to ranks, with the reforming of the training board and the training schools for police ranks across the country. Ranks have also been warned about the repercussions of their actions that might run foul of the law. Many of the recommendations for the reform of the police force were contained in a document put forward by a British advisor. The government has given the all-clear for the recommendations to be taken on board along with other recommendations. More news coming up in a moment.
This Christmas, get a loan for your dream car with an extended repayment term. Spruce up your home with that renovation you always wanted and take advantage of low or no down payment. Get new appliances so you can cook up a storm. You'll get same-day approval. Plus, you can win a getaway to a destination of your choice. Visit RepublicGuyana.com today to find out how.
Republic Bank. We're the one for you.
Get ready to ride it, ready to ride it, ride the wave. Open up the new vibe, drink up the boldness inside. Radical and fresh and wild, catch the wave now. Ride bold, ride fresh, ride strong, come on, ride the wave. Taste the action, satisfaction, perfection. Wave,
Ride the new wave of excitement sweeping Guyana. Wave Pale Ale, a premium, full-bodied, strong and refreshing alcoholic brew, crafted to perfection for a bold, young, radical you. Don't settle for anything less. Catch a Wave Pale Ale and ride it today.
Wave Pale Ale.
Crafted to perfection.
Welcome back. 1 month after the body of Sharon Apple, also known as Yellow, was found on the Kitty foreshore, the Guyana Police Force is hunting a person of interest in the murder case. Crime Chief Lyndon Alves today told reporters that the case is still an active one, and the person of interest has been identified and is being sought. He did not want to offer any more detail on the case or on the suspect, but made a call for anyone who may have additional information on the case to contact the police. A post-mortem examination had found that a 42-year-old man may have been strangled to death. At first, investigators thought it might have been a suicide case, but a post-mortem examination ruled that out. Apple was found dead while he was being sought by the police to face questions about a sex tape that was circulating on social media. That video recording saw the now dead man and a friend engaging in sexual activities with a woman. Some persons on the social media landscape had called for him to be investigated for rape, since at some parts of the video the woman was seen trying to prevent further sexual activity. But family members had claimed that the man explained to them that it was all consensual and role-playing. Days later, he was found dead as there was a backlash on social media. A young woman who it is believed was the same young woman in the video was questioned by the police but denied that she was the same person in the video. The other young man was questioned but later released. Family members had always maintained that the man was murdered, and he was last seen alive leaving his Kitty home the night before his body was found. He had complained to some relatives that someone had been calling his phone and issuing death threats. The probe continues. Still with police matters, Police Commissioner Leslie James today declared that corruption must become something of the past in the Guyana Police Force, and he has been explaining that to ranks across the country during his divisional visits. The police commissioner told reporters today that his force is looking to greatly reduce corrupt activities involving its ranks, but while eradication would be ideal, reduction is more likely.
And you should understand that corruption is a decision made by individual. It's not for the want of training or ranks would get involved with corruption. It's a decision. And I want to make it clear, let me take the opportunity. I want to make a call to our citizens. Without an offer, there can be an acceptance. I would urge persons who do not have the documents in place, have your documents fully in force. If you do not have a permit to carry a tint, ensure you get the requisite permit, among other things. Drive or use the road safely. So you would not have any reason to be stopped by a policeman, and then the rest, the solid type of reports will be occasioned. But as I said, if you don't have an offer, you can't have an acceptance.
The police commissioner noted that the top brass of the police force has been reminding the ranks of their professionalism and all that is expected of them as police officers.
We are reminding the ranks in a deliberate way of their professionalism, what is expected of them. We're reminding them of their mandate. A policeman is a person who do not engage with such things. And constant reminders are necessary. And we are taking the leadership. We're leading from the front. We're engaging divisional commanders, subdivision officers, and reminding them that they have to constantly engage with the ranks and remind them that our image is something that you must be concerned with.
Mr. James also explained that many persons do not report cases of police corrupt activities. He made a call for more of those complaints to be filed if and when they take place. But he noted that as part of the reform process, the police force will be paying extra attention to weed out and reduce corrupt activities that might include its members. Turning now to the courts and the political landscape. The opposition People's Progressive Party, through its executive secretary, is taking its case against the appointment of the GCOM chairman all the way to the Caribbean Court of Justice. The party, through attorney Anil Nandlal, has officially filed notice of motion, indicating the move to the Caribbean Court of Justice. The move comes after the High Court and the Court of Appeal in Guyana both dismissed the PPP's argument that the president was wrong and acted unlawfully in his appointment of the chairman of the Guyana Elections Commission. The local court said the president did not act unlawfully or illegally in his appointment of Justice James Patterson as the chairman of the Guyana Elections Commission. Both courts indicated that the president acted within the constitution. But the PPP feels otherwise, and the party's lead attorney Anil Nandlal has even accused the local courts of always handing down judgments in a particular way when cases of a political nature appear before them. He now wants the CCJ to quash the decision of the local courts, effectively declaring the appointment illegal. The Attorney General Senior Counsel Basil Williams has said his chambers will defend the government's position in the matter and is ready for the appearance before the Caribbean Court of Justice. He has described the PPP's many moves to the courts as an abuse on the judicial system. The Attorney General has also criticized Mr. Nandlal's statements against the local judiciary in wake of the rulings that went against him. But let's tell you now that opposition leader and former President Bara Jagdeo has declared that he does not believe copyright legislation should be introduced in Guyana at this time. Mr. Jagdeo's statement came today at his weekly press conference, and 1 week after, President David Granger told the National Assembly that the government plans to introduce copyright legislation in the new year. The opposition leader today said persons need to truly understand what the introduction of copyright legislation will mean for Guyana.
And I hope that people understand what this would mean. It would be a revolution in Guyana. I'm not going to say much more, because this government, when it passes that next year, every video store in this country will have to close. Every video store would have to close that sells these bootlegs. And every store that sells music now would have to, that they currently do it the way they currently do it, they would have to shut those down too. And the guys who are doing the push cart, they can be charged too. They wouldn't be able to do that anymore. And until we would have to, the citizens of this country will have to pay for everything. Every single thing.
According to Mr. Jagdeo, the move to introduce copyright legislation may only help a few, and he believes those might be the persons who are close to the government.
There's a particular group that is in bed with them to work on this, because then they will hug the entire cable environment, and they'll charge people large sums of money. So that you don't, because everything else you wouldn't be able to see. Free movies, nothing else. On other stations, they would have to pay the copyright. So I hope that people understand what this government is doing.
The cable companies in Guyana came into being under the Jagdeo presidency, and it was his government that provided some of the companies with many concessions that were not made available to other players in the telecommunications market. The former government had also restricted some companies from expanding their operations, while others were allowed to do so. There have always been calls locally and internationally for Guyana to put updated copyright legislation in place. The calls were mostly ignored under the last government. Today, the former president said Guyana is still a developing country, and he does not believe there is need to move in that copyright area at this stage. He said the right time is not now. And finally tonight, veteran trade unionist and former board member at the Guyana Power and Light Company, Carville Duncan, was all smiles today as he was freed of a $27 million fraud conspiracy charge. Magistrate Fabio Azor today ruled that the prosecution had failed to make out a strong enough case against Duncan. Mr. Duncan was charged back in 2016 with conspiring with former GPL Deputy Chief Executive Officer Ash Dionarine to defraud the company by authorizing back pay for Dionarine in the sum of $27 million. He had always maintained his innocence. Today, Magistrate Azor said the prosecution had failed to establish and prove that there was conspiracy in the matter or that there was an agreement between the two to defraud the company. She said the prosecution also failed to prove that the act was indeed unlawful. The charge against Duncan stemmed from his alleged role in authorizing the back pay for the former Deputy Chief Executive Officer. The other members of the GPL board and management were unaware of the payments and the payouts, which reportedly took place between May 7th and 8th in 2015. The payments were never authorized, although reports indicate that there might have been some discussion about them. The alleged fraud was uncovered during an audit of the power company. The Deputy Chief Executive Officer Ashdearn Ryan hurried out of Guyana just after he was placed on leave as the audit uncovered the alleged fraud. He had also promised to return all of the money but has failed to do so, and has failed also to return to Guyana to face the courts. And that's your News Source Evening Bulletin for tonight. Gordon Mosley reporting.